What is up, everybody? Long time no see, and welcome back here to Deadlock and Load. We are finally back after a little bit of a break. It is episode 14. Man, it's been a minute, Brian. I feel like, we had a lot of stuff that we were planning to talk about. We're like, all right, we'll wait for the next patch. And boy, did they hit us with something good.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna be gone, maybe busy for like 10 days in January, and like 2 days after I left, they're like, "Hit, boom! Here's the thing you guys have been talking about and waiting for so long." Beautiful timing there. It feels like that's how it always goes with game updates, just in general. It feels like you've been waiting all that time, you finally have a weekend off, and then the day after, uh, they dropped the patch. So, but no, I'm excited. I'm glad. A bunch of new stuff to talk about today. I'm excited to talk about it. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. This is something that we've kind of been talking about for a while. We're due for some hero releases. There's a bunch of heroes that are mostly done, and they could be dropped in the game at any moment. We said likely it was going to be Calico and Holiday. We're probably just going to get released at the same time, and people are like, "Nah, that's not going to happen. They just do one hero at a time." And well, then they went beyond our expectations and dropped four heroes all at once. And I think three of the four were the ones that I was predicting to come out. The one that really caught me off guard, and I think a lot of people off guard, was the Magnificent Sinclair drop. And of course, the rename of Magnificent Sinclair from Magician. This hero just looks hilarious when you see him in game because he is just so placeholder in every single way. But really cool hero. Great reworks that they did to a lot of these since when we saw them in Hero Labs. But yeah, where do you even want to start?
No, I mean, I think just the idea that I feel like the way Valve has always been about releasing updates has been the fact that every time I set my expectation lower or like even like what I would call reasonably, they always seem to out deliver. Sometimes it's overdue and it takes a bit longer than I wish it did, but yeah, like you mentioned, I don't think anybody really thought, yep, they're just gonna pull the trigger and release four heroes at the same time. They were building up. Was it a total of 8 or 7?
There was eight.
Eight in the hero lab. So it's not like all too shocking, but I think it was much needed. I mean, we were literally going over before we started today what we're going to be talking about, and we've kind of been like weaving other subjects with Deadlock throughout the rest of our last like 4 or 5 episodes. And today we're just like, well, this is what we're going to talk about. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about, and that's always exciting. It's just straightforward, simple things to be excited about, laughing about funny meta builds and all that kind of stuff. And half of it's like, I don't even think this is good, but this is hilarious or really fun. And I don't know, just the vibe of the conversation we had today going into the podcast, it just felt very similar to how I felt when I was just getting into Deadlock, and playing it for the creativity aspect, trying new things. Nobody knows what they're doing. And adding 4 heroes to a previously hero pool of 22, that throws a real wrench in things. And we had been talking about that. We were just like, we love that you're trying to perfect the game, you're trying to perfectly balance the game, but let's just fuck things up a little bit and see what happens. And that's definitely what they did.
Yeah, I mean, we said adding to the hero roster was like the number one thing we wanted to see from them in this like first 6 months of the year. And I said I want them to hit 30 heroes by June. That would be like ideal, and we are a lot closer to that than we were just a few weeks ago. But the thing that's just so cool, like you said, is they're clearly not afraid to just mess with the game in whatever way that they want. And we've seen that in the past with the frequent updates, but now it's like, all right, we have the game in a state that it plays how we want. Now we get to add absolute chaos by introducing heroes that are either completely unfinished in certain ways, like just like spells maybe not exactly where they want them to be, definitely not balanced, as we've already had a one balance patch already come out fixing some random bugs and stuff as well with Sinclair. But it's fun. Like it brings the fun back into Deadlock. Like I can't tell you how many more people that I know that are getting back on Deadlock and enjoying it just casually, but compared to what it was just before these heroes came out. And it's not like the rest of the game changed. It's all the same. It's just new heroes, people experimenting and having a good time. And that's kind of what Deadlock, like you said, felt like a while ago. And I feel like this is the first patch of kind of like the trend that we're gonna see with Deadlock going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I look at the player, I actually looked at the player count on Steam, and for the first time in a while, it took a slight trickle up over the last week, and then it stayed steady. And for me, I'm literally thinking like, we've been talking about it. We try not to be doom and gloom or anything, but it has been slightly going down like consistently over the last few months. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, is this the dip? Do we buy the dip? Do we buy the dip? Because I really do think if they keep this momentum, the important thing for me about what you're saying about people coming back, people finding fun in the game again, I just want to say that what's stopping them from doing this consistently, So just posing a little bit of, not devil's advocate per se, but I guess a little dose of healthy skepticism at the start, which is, this is fantastic. Let's just keep seeing this, and like, all my questions and prayers are answered, So I definitely think those type of things like player counts and they will speak for themselves, And right now, like, I think what they did was great. Nobody needs perfect balance. This game is an alpha. We don't need a polished product. Like you said, like, if you look at Magnificent Sinclair's like hero model and shit, like, nobody's like, yeah, that looks polished. But if they're having fun, hexing people and stuff like that, then that's what the game's all about. And, when I originally played this game, it's not because, the visual graphics are stunning. It's like, no, this gameplay is super fun and engaging and super fresh every time. I didn't know what to expect. And 22 heroes, that just didn't cut it. And right now, like, I can just imagine, like, I think if they were to do this like one more time, maybe like 2 to 4 heroes, like you said, get around 30, and people suddenly see like, wow, I haven't really kept up with the meta. I haven't really been keeping up with the popular item builds and the strats and all that. But there's so much in the game. I feel like everyone's kind of starting over when it comes to understanding strategically. I think that's the kind of thing that gets people coming back to try such like a complex game. Like Deadlock, because at the end of the day, I know there's people like me out there that are thinking, wow, there's just so much refinement that's happened over the last like month or two, and the people that have kept up with every single change by playing 10 games a day, that's just impossible to compete with. But if they just suddenly throw 8 more heroes in the game in a matter of like a month or two, that doesn't apply anymore. So now I'm starting to think, okay, this is getting people back. It's getting some momentum. How are they going to carry it forward? It's obvious, that we want them to put more heroes in, but timing of it, execution, it's all very important. I like the follow-up update that we mentioned, like just saying, okay, we've got a decent sample size enough. You want the new heroes to be good, because then that's the only way you're going to get a lot of people playing them. So other than Viper, I see pretty much strictly, I guess Magnificent Sinclair also got kind of nerfed, but his more seemed like his like items weren't interacting with his abilities and stuff properly.
Yeah,
so
Hex was too good.
yeah,
Hex
so
Hex is too good.
yeah, I mean, that's like that's not fun. But I see like Caligo buffs, holiday buffs. Yeah, it's just one of those things where you want them in a good spot where people feel good to see them. And every time I tune into streams, I see at least 2, usually 3 or 4 of the new heroes in the lobby. So people are clearly enjoying them and playing them, despite the fact that, they're probably going to play against one tricks and stuff that just own them because they know exactly what they're doing. But, yeah, I mean, you were excited about a build coming into this. I'm sure people at home would love to hear you rave about that.
Well, I guess before we jump to that, I guess we haven't actually really said, for those of you who maybe have been out of the Deadlock loop, you may not even know what heroes we're talking about, because there were 4 that were dropped. Now, these heroes are Holiday, Viper, Calico, and Magnificent Sinclair, formerly the Magician. These were the heroes that were added. Now, they were added with a nice little Deadlock event news article that was posted to Steam as well. And there's one little bit of this that I wanted to read off because it's actually really important. I think this definitely tells us kind of Valve's goals here, which was, as they said, expanding our roster is one of our major goals in 2025. While some of these characters have a much higher degree of temporary art than usual, we are excited to see how they perform on the battlefield. So, who are these new faces you'll be seeing in the streets of New York? And then they go on to talk about each of the characters and some of the things that are unique to each of them. Yeah, it's just cool. It's exactly what we were hoping for. And I guess we could start with Calico. She's probably one of the most interesting heroes at the moment for those of you who like maybe touched the hero a little bit in Hero Labs. She is nothing like what she used to be. She used to set up these turrets everywhere and was basically like this weird trap based hero where anyone would come near your side of the map and just get zapped by a billion cats sitting on the tops of buildings. Like it was very weird hero, but it was hilarious, right? Very different now, but much as a meme that build was, we now have the real star of the Calico, which is actually just Ava, the cat itself, and the fact that you can just be Ava forever, running around cold fronting and torment pulsing people, and no one can shoot you because you're too fast. And it's hilarious. And I love this, and it just makes Dota makes Deadlock very fun.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying like, I don't know if it's good, but it's fun, and who cares if it's good or balanced? It's like, you know, if you can post memes about like you just died to a cat that can't even shoot you in a gun game, that's pretty funny. And I mean, just even hearing like the theory crafting and knowing like, oh, we're gonna try these new builds, and that's like the sign that the game like has sparked curiosity and interest again, you know. And so, that's just for me. It's just all positives. I kind of just keep gushing about the fact that like this is all they needed to do, you know. Like this gives them so much, and I mean, all the heroes have a pretty unique identity. Viper, the sliding hero, you know, Holiday. I really just see him as people consistently talking about his ulti, the lasso, and everything. And then yeah, every hero seems to have their own identity. Like I like the rework or rename of the Magician to the Magnificent Sinclair. Something about that just has a nicer ring to it. Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm looking at all of it. I'm like, wow, there's like I'm not just reading number changes. You know, I'm not just reading that this got extra 0.5 damage. This is like entirely new abilities and spell kits, and combinations to try. And that to me, like when I was watching the streams when I got back, I was like, wow, that's cool. I have no idea what I'm watching. Like I've never seen a Holiday before because I wasn't playing Hero Labs. So that's exciting.
Yeah, they removed a lot of the jank from the heroes too. Like Calico is just so awkward to play. They basically reworked everything about this hero. Like all four of her abilities have been either improved or changed completely, and for the better, I think, which is fantastic. Holiday as well. The ult, the lasso, is now an actual lasso. It's like Bebop hook in a way where it's not just point and click. You have to. It's a skill shot, right? Which is a big deal. But it has a pretty large cast range, so you can kidnap people and then jump on your bounce pad and fly into the sky with them. So that's hilarious, and I'm always happy to see stuff like that. I think Holiday might have some overtuned builds at the moment with like spell damage and like the combinations of like bounce pad and keg and stuff like that, but she's just a very fun hero to watch, especially in the hands of someone who's very good with her. And that's I like more heroes like this. Like the specialist heroes, as we like to refer to them, are always really cool to watch. Like the Lashes of the world. Holidays in the Paradox, like Holiday is in that vein very much so.
Yeah, I mean the big thing about like if you take, you know, Dota the MOBA and Deadlock the shooter MOBA is that the Deadlock adds a three-dimensional aspect to the game. So I think the verticality was something that I always was like, this is Dota with verticality, you know, like that's crazy. And so yeah, you mentioned Lash, one of the few heroes that really is consistently playing on roofs and abusing that third dimension. I feel like Holiday, you know, adding more and more heroes that do that, I think is just it's just fun. It's just engaging. That's part of what gives this game a unique identity. I know every shooter game itself has verticality in it, so it's not like unique to shooters, but to see like Dota abilities like lasso, and then just imagine it with like I'm just imagining like a bat rider being able to jump up out of my screen. That's kind of what I'm imagining.
Just flies across the
Yeah,
sky.
yeah, it's just
You're like,
funny.
okay, bye then.
Yeah, it's just stuff like that. That's like, it's just funny. There's there's the nostalgic value almost a little bit. Yeah, I like you said, it's just fun. New combinations, specialist heroes, people trying things. For me, it's funny because Viper, I was sad to see they already nerfed him. Did you feel like he was too strong? Because like they nerfed him within like a few days of it coming out. Because the sliding hero seemed like the funnest one to me out of all of them.
So for starters, Viper is a she.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Her.
no, it's all right. She was way too strong. Her bullet damage was ridiculous. Needed to definitely be nerfed. I think her starting weapon DPS was like 150.
Oof.
Which is kind of insane when you don't have to reload as long as you're taking advantage of terrain in the lane. So she was very strong from the get-go. She got nerfed, which we'll actually talk about one of the other nerfs in a little bit later. But it's so funny that we're talking about here, like the fact that there's these heroes that take advantage of the vertical axis, and Viper is literally the one hero that doesn't want to take advantage of the vertical axis. They just want to slither on the ground for eternity, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, even like the fact that you have slide infinite ammo, I always kind of thought that was like a pretty iconic mechanic of this game. And I was super excited when they initially announced Viper to go to Hero Labs, just a hero that was purely based on sliding. Because there's just something to be said where, sliding is an important mechanic to practice in this game.
It is.
And so it's funny to think that, like, if you want to get better at sliding, you can just go play this hero. You're meant to be sliding 90% of the time. So even something as simple as that, which tells me I can go practice a mechanic and abuse it and learn to min-max it. Because whatever I learned to do on Viper, maybe not sliding up ramps or whatever, but can be used on like every other hero to some extent. So I just love when that type of stuff rears its head. And yeah, I mean, even though it doesn't abuse the verticality that I'm super excited about in general in the game, I was always a huge fan when heroes abuse certain mechanics, and that's like intricate to their kit. So I really like that they did that for Deadlock as well.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. And then, I mean, in terms of the rest of our kit, a lot of it is kind of the same from what was in Hero Labs before. Now, the Petrifying Gaze has now been turned into like a skill shot as opposed to like a cast on ground type of thing.
Skill
now it's
shots
just a
are always more
petrifying
fun,
bullet. Yeah, I think it's actually a much better implementation of the ability. It's really good. Lethal Venom is pretty much the same. And then the dagger is slightly different, but for the most part, the hero plays very similar to maybe what you experienced in Hero Labs. Now, Magnificent Sinclair. When people saw this hero get added, they thought it was a joke. But they reworked him quite well, and then they gave him something that us from the Dota scene is very familiar with, which is basically Rubik's ultimate, the ability to steal other people's ultimate abilities, which is, it's way easier to use than Rubik because you don't have to like wait for the ultimate to get cast. You just choose the hero and you have 10 seconds to use their ultimate after you've stolen it. So it is really cool, and I've seen some amazing Sinclair plays already. But it also has the reduced cast points like Rubik does, which is not really notated anywhere on the spells. But he has 0 cast points off of audience participation, which is a big deal with certain abilities.
I was personally surprised that they did that again, because I know like half the bugs in all of Dota are just Rubik.
Rubik and Morph, yep.
Yeah, so yeah, Morph as well. So I was surprised, like, they were probably considering that for a while, had the exact same hesitation that I'm mentioning now, and then somebody said like, "Don't worry, I'll tank this one.
Got it, guys.
I'll be the sole engineer behind Magnificent Sinclair and fixing his bugs. No, I mean, stealing people's abilities and having that just adds such a different dynamic to the game. It's very difficult to make work, I imagine, like in a game as hectic as Deadlock compared like Dota. It's like you have so much information that's on your screen in Dota that the last thing you're really like, you have a bit more headspace to focus on targets and who you're like thinking about where you're going to cast your spells. But I feel like in Deadlock, I'm now imagining like applying Rubik's mechanics to Deadlock, and I'm just thinking like that seems hard. It was already like chaotic enough on my screen, so definitely going to be a super high skill hero and awareness of like, you have to understand and be able to mechanically effectively use every hero's ultimate in the game. So he truly is like going to require the skill of like Morph and Rubik. And but also at the same time, I remember at one point I learned Morph and Rubik, thinking like, yeah, I'll just learn every hero at the same time. Like this was like when I was super new to Dota. So having a hero where you get to basically trial run every hero's ultimate in the game if you're new to the game, and then once you've kind of mastered heroes, it rewards you for having more overall understanding of the game. I think it's just an all-around win to have a hero like that in the game, except for on the coding front, for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be a work, quite a bit of work to upkeep, but I think the fans are gonna love it. It's one of those things that it's made so many iconic moments in Dota over the years that I can already foresee we're gonna have something similar. We're gonna have Sinclair moments in Deadlock where you're like, I can't believe that they pulled this off, right? So I think it's great for the game. I'm excited to see what we're gonna get out of it. And this is like just 4 of the 8 heroes that have been sitting in Hero Labs. And with this being said, I don't know if we're gonna see any more heroes coming out quite soon. I would say it wouldn't surprise me if we're like at least a month away from another hero release or something. I'm okay with that as long as it means that they're kind of like kind of going back and forth between some of the other things that we've talked about, which is like updating assets on the map as well. Because Park Lane is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Now it's time to update these other lanes, and I think that would be like something to just kind of go back and forth between, right? Updating visually the game, get the next hero release, update some visuals into the game, get the next hero release, and that way things have time to like kind of cook a little bit and see how everything settles instead of what we've kind of seen in the past, which was like the update exhaustion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned already in the previous episode that all we need is like general updates if like, you know, a hero's super broken, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I think as long as, you know, there's no OP new hero of the patch or some new build that's just completely ruined Yamato again, because that hero seems to always be problematic.
She's been nerfed every patch.
Yeah, definitely the Bat Rider of Deadlock just getting nerfed for 5 years straight and somehow still good. But yeah, no, I definitely feel like the visuals is something they do need to tackle. I think it also includes with just the new heroes. Like I think if like you're consistently every week like, okay, now Magnificent Sinclair looks less placeholder, now you know, now this lane looks less placeholder, now this one, now this sub area looks more like, you know, vibrant and stuff. So yeah, I just think that that's the general vibe that I would like to be seeing, a more and more polished game. Like I want kind of a hint indication that they're moving towards releasing the game. You know what I mean? As like
100%.
a full thing. So that's obviously not going to happen overnight. And so now that we're seeing like, okay, well, they released 4 new heroes. That's exciting. Throw a wrench in things. I think it'll be a huge mistake if they wait like 3 months to release 4 more. I think
Agreed.
I think what they did this time, right, is fine. Like if they said like, okay, we're changing our approach for the new year. We're back from the holidays. You know, Merry Christmas 3 weeks late, you know? But if they continue, I hate to say it, I'm going to express healthy skepticism again. I'd say the Valve way of what they did with Dota, which is every patch was fantastic, but I didn't know when it was coming, and I'm like hoping there is one at the almost, and every time there ended up being one, but really not knowing when that's going to happen or what it's going to look like at all, just kind of, it made patch exhaustion, not because you couldn't keep up with the meta, but just because
You were like apathetic.
yeah, you were like, well, if I give myself any expectations or hope, I just get sad because it's actually so awesome, these patches. So I'm seeing like, okay, this is exciting. People are now being given the impression like you're going to be releasing a bunch of new fresh stuff in this game. And if they were just like every 2 weeks or so, releasing some significant polish, like just like we said, one aspect of the map, one hero, and then like slight balance changes, nothing that changes meta builds or anything, just saying like, okay, nerf for this guy. And then over time, you're like, okay, now we're seeing the game slowly and slowly become more aesthetically pleasing. And boom, new hero after like a month or two, you know? Boom, a new hero after a month, after like, you know, it just continues kind of ramping it up. Man, like I'm just envisioning like that just sounds so nice, you know?
I honestly don't feel like Raven and Fathom are that far off. Like I legitimately think that either by the end of February or early March, like they will probably both be in the game. I think that's pretty likely. The heroes are already like there's a lot of data on them. They have pretty unique spells. Like their identity is kind of solidified in what they want them to be. And now it's just going to be like minor tweakings of some of these spells. Maybe you give Fathom an actual like like model, but to be honest, they didn't do it with Sinclair, so I wouldn't even be surprised they just put this Slork looking character back into the game, you know? Like why not? Like
I would
and just
love Slork
let
him.
people have fun with it, right? You know, and I'm really happy for how this patch has already gone and for the follow-up balance patch. And I will say there is one line of text in the follow-up balance patch that might be the single most important or might be the most important single line balance that we've had in Deadlock. Maybe I don't want to say of all time, but like for months, like for many months, which is that all hero base gun damage was reduced by 10%, including growth rates as well. They just flat out nerfed every gun damage, like on every hero across the board. Which we've seen stuff like this in approaches into Dota. There was like the stun uh like balance patch where they just nerfed all stuns by a percentage to try and remove like just getting chain stunned for an hour. Um but yeah, I think this single patch note line is really important, and I think it is, in my opinion, a net benefit for the game because I think guns were way too strong.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember anytime there was a patch where people built a bunch of orange items, even on like Kelvin, then it's like that's not fun. You don't want homogeneity between like all the heroes in the game, right? With the way they play and build, and it is a shooter, but what makes it unique is just how MOBA-like it has with spell spamming. So anything that dissuades people from casting spells on each other in a game like Deadlock, I think should definitely be like addressed. So looking at that, like I immediately think they want people to cast more spells. They want more spell to spell interactions, and for that to have a heavier weight on your success within the game. But yeah, aim, headshotting, that's fantastic. It still matters. You know, with that kind of stuff, it's like I am weary that like they don't keep changing major parts of the game like that. But when I immediately see like, yeah, this is gonna add more, like people need to be more creative and like more useful, you like have better utility of their own hero spells. That's what I read when I see that line. That's an okay thing. Just like I said earlier, I think patch notes are great, as long as they are not significantly changing the way you play the game. But if they improve the feel of the game, then that's fantastic and aligns with exactly what you know we've been saying for all the other changes we want to see. And I definitely feel like that's a vibe check patch note. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that, like you said, Kelvin's just built gun damage. Viscus, who is like supposedly like supposed to be the best support in the game, is just max orange items. Why not? Because he has a good gun and gun damage scales really well. And then you have just the on-hit meta of all the heroes with like different on-hit effects like Haze or Wraith. They just build attack speed and they just rip through heroes like it was nothing. And so I like I like this change in every aspect. I don't think it punishes like one hero necessarily more than the other. Like maybe certain heroes are hurt more, but it's one of those things that I think generally, like you said, it encourages people to be more creative with their actual heroes and their abilities as opposed to just holding down left click.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything
So
I was like, super excited for this episode. You know, I was like, I really, as much as I joked about at the start, I'm like, come on, Valve, you did not just release this like first 2 days of my 10 days gone. But I am just really excited to see what they follow this up with. You know, I think the vibe of this episode for us has just been great start. Now let's see where that momentum carries because we're loving what we're seeing here.
yeah, you will definitely see me running around the map as Ava for the foreseeable future until that gets changed in some way. And I hope it doesn't because I think it's a hilarious way to play the game. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I don't know if we have a whole lot more. Like, I didn't want to go into like super in depth on each of the heroes because like I don't know. People can go into the client and look at their spells and check them out. I think if you guys want to do stuff like that, I would encourage it. But um, as you know, as always, we try to keep our podcast not too lengthy because otherwise we'd be sitting here for 3 hours breaking down the heroes. Um, do you want to move into our what we learned this week segment? Or is there something
Let's
else
go
that you want
for
to
it.
talk
I'm
about?
curious. I'm excited for what you're learned what you learned this week because for me, while I was gone, I mean technically it'd be like 2 weeks of what we learned, but I'm curious because my life was Dutch school and then I was in Singapore for 4 days, so I spent a ton of time jet lagged. So my life was kind of all over the place. So I'm here. I'm excited to hear what you learned in the last week or two.
So the most recent thing I've learned, I'll try and come up with another one as well because this one's well, whatever. A while back, I mentioned that I started playing a card game called Flesh and Blood. It's like a trading card game. There's like a new set coming out for that very soon, and so I went to like one of the pre-release events, and I got to like participate in essentially like my first kind of blind draft tournament, or like it's like a small like blitz format tournament. So it's like everyone has less cards, less health, but you get 8 packs. You take out all your cards and you build a deck really quick and then you play against each other, and everyone has essentially random cards right from the new set,
That's
and you kind
cool.
of just learn how to play it. So it was really fun. I wanted to do it because it's the polar opposite of the hero that I currently play. I play something that's like a guardian where I play mostly defensive. I like kind of prepare for my turns like multiple turns in advance sometimes, and then I'll usually like swing really heavy for a lot of damage with like one ability. Whereas this new set is all about like ninjas and assassins and warriors that will attack like 4 or 5 times in one turn with a bunch of different cards, and I'm just like, I don't do this. Like I have no idea how I'm playing. So I was very confused. I lost every game I played, but it was a lot to learn, and it was a good time.
You either win or you learn, you know?
Yeah,
No, it is a good
exactly.
time. I mean, mine's a lot more surface level for this one because it mattered to me the most out of everything, which I wasn't getting very good sleep on my planes. So I have determined and learned for myself that there is a value to getting window seats because I sleep way better when I'm allowed to lean against the window, and I'm also not woken up by people, you know, going to the bathroom while I'm sleeping on really long plane flights. So I have determined that I will willingly pay $75 to $100 if it's an 8-hour flight or more to get the window because I have learned the value of sleeping on long plane flights. That is what I have learned the value of in the last 2 weeks because I was playing catch up for the last like 3 or 4 days because I got back and then I got effectively 2 hours of sleep on that plane flight, which was 12 hours from Singapore. And so, you know, take care of yourselves out there, guys, because it's the simple things, you know, food, water, sleep, and I'm good to go.
I feel like I have a little bit of a hot take on that. I
Okay,
agree.
hot
I
take, hot take.
always try to go for the window seats, but I think legitimately the second best seat if you're on one of these international flights where there's like the row in the middle, the literal dead center of the middle row is like the second best
Mm,
seat you can be on because ain't nobody gonna walk over me when I'm trying to sleep. Nobody can walk over me, right? Like they're
dude,
gonna
yeah.
go to the outside. So it's like you either are at a window or you're in the actual middle of the plane.
I'm gonna give a quick. So that's a good call, by the way. That'll probably be my backup plan. I
Yeah.
would like to just make a public service announcement, guys, that there are people out there that if you bump into them, they won't be able to get back to sleep. Okay, when you're walking down the alley or the hallway, of the plane, and you are bumping into people's shoulders that are that are in the what do you
In their
in
chairs.
the aisle row, yeah, in the aisle row. I was
Yeah.
like trying to think of what the aisle chair is. The people that are in their chairs, if you're doing that, just be a little bit more careful on your way to the bathroom. We appreciate it greatly. I know you're on a moving plane and you're probably drowsy and everything, but just take a little bit of extra effort. I would personally greatly appreciate it, and I know there's a lot of people out there that would too. So, shout out to getting your needed rest and having an enjoyable plane flight. But yeah, I'm gonna check. I'm gonna keep. We don't want too many people to be on the same meta page here because then the seats are gonna become monopolized. So
Mm.
for everyone listening, don't try what Ricky was saying, or what I'm saying about the
Oh
window.
no.
Just you guys enjoy your aisle seats, and keep them for yourselves there.
Yeah, just wear an adult diaper. That'll fix the issue entirely. And then
Absolutely.
you don't have to go to the bathroom. You can just sit there in your own filth, and it'll be great.
That sounds like a wonderful way to get sleep and enjoy my plane flight is
Yeah.
sitting in my own shit.
Ugh,
And on that
8 hours of
note,
that.
what a fantastic. Did you have something else you learned that you wanted to mention, or is it that we can take an adult diaper on planes? I'm happy
I
to end
think
it there.
now it's the fact that I can take a diaper on a plane. I think that's my number 2 thing I learned, and it was just now. So
Very
I'm gonna take
important.
that one.
We're
Yeah.
always learning together and growing together on this podcast. That's super wholesome to hear.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to. I'm glad you're back, man. I'm glad we're gonna be able to do some more episodes going forward. We're always looking forward to what Valve is cooking up here in Deadlock, and what their next big updates are gonna be. And with the schedule being more spread out, we have some things that we've wanted to do in the past that we kind of never really got to do because there were just updates constantly. So we have some ideas, some things that maybe you guys should look forward to on the future episodes here for Deadlock and Load. But until next time, I just want to say thank you all so much for watching and for listening. If you guys are not subscribed to either the YouTube or the Spotify, you should do so. Give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.
All right.
Peace.
Take care, everybody. Peace.